The coronavirus pandemic has disproportionately affected those in nursing homes, with more than 37,000 residents dying from COVID-19. It's important to remember those who can't remember themselves. People suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia and their families have dealt with a layered burden throughout this crisis. According to the Alzheimer's Association, more than 40% of nursing home residents are living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia.
My mom, Doris, is 91, and she was diagnosed at age 77 in 2006.
Loretta Vini's mother was moved into Life Springs Elder Care in Maryland back in 2018 and blossomed, according to Loretta. But when the pandemic hit, the facility went on lockdown, and Loretta went over 90 days without seeing her mother.
It's the longest we've ever been separated in my entire life. And your number one fear, when you read the email that says, no more personal visits, everyone will be doing video chats, your first thought, my first thought was, am I ever going to see my mother again? Everybody wants to know that, everybody.
Because Doris is in the later stages of her disease, Loretta hasn't tried to explain the growing crisis. Melissa Wass and her wife, Carrie Meyer, have also decided not to explain coronavirus to Melissa's mother, Joyce. Because Joyce is bedridden, they've taken a different approach to the pandemic as at-home caregivers.
Our interactions with people outside of the home have been pretty much nil. So I think that's really affected our mental health, and the fact that, like Carrie said, my mom is difficult, and she's at the point in her disease where just changing her, she screams as though she's being stabbed, and it's horrific to listen to. And that was something where we would get that respite and leave the house, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and kind of mentally step away from everything, and that no longer is an option.
Carrie has taken over as the primary caregiver for Melissa's mother in order to limit other caregivers who work in other facilities from entering the house and potentially infecting them.
Caregivers of family members living with dementia are struggling during the pandemic because they may not be able to access the types of supports that they could before the pandemic started.
Beth Kallmeyer is the VP of Care and Support for the Alzheimer's Association. The organization hopes to draw attention to the difficulties the pandemic has had on the over 5.8 million Americans suffering with the disease.
The guidance from the Alzheimer's Association to the federal and state governments is that we're not doing nearly enough. And what we're seeing, frankly, is that people that are suffering from dementia are also declining because they don't have the same levels of engagement that they've had before. So the social isolation piece here is really devastating, and we're seeing the results of that as this plays out.
Melissa knows that at-home caregivers, especially those taking care of a family member, face uncertainty and limited resources because of the pandemic.
I can only see my mom compromised to a certain extent before I just break down. I mean, she literally is cleaning her and putting diapers on her. This is my mother. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is that if something happens to her.
Nothing's gonna happen to me.
I know.
I'll be fine.
Loretta finally saw her mother in late June, maintaining social distance protocols.
That was the best day of my life. And I mean, she sent out this email, you had to make an appointment to go. I picked up that phone, I got the first appointment, of course. I rush over there, and I had taken this bright pink ball, and you still had to be the 6 feet apart. So I was on one side of the patio table, and she was on the other. We threw that ball back and forth, across that table. And it was just, there wasn't anything better. It was, and she said the same thing over and over. This is fun.
The joy that Loretta felt was tempered by what she and many caregivers and family members feel for their loved ones with dementia: guilt.
The group home loved my mother as much as I do. So that was disconcerting, not knowing whose hand she was in. Do they really care? They've been doing this so long with COVID. They're exhausted too. What kind of care was she really getting over this? So it was very scary.
Hospitals in California getting some much-needed help from the military. The state reported nearly 10,000 new coronavirus cases in the past 24 hours. Its hospitals running out of space, hospital staff running on fumes. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins me now. And Aaron, what kind of military help are we talking about here?
Well, Allison, you may remember at the beginning of this pandemic, the site of the USNS Mercy arriving to port here in LA to support LA hospitals. I was there at the dock at the time. It was an incredible sight to behold. Nothing extravagant as that this time around. Some 160 military personnel, including doctors, nurses, technicians, are going to be arriving, or are arriving rather, at a number of hospitals across the state of California, including the Eisenhower Medical Center. Just late yesterday, a team of 20 technicians, doctors, and nurses arrived there to provide ICU support. Medical staff there saying the site is a relief. Take a listen.
Yeah, they're saying, yay. They are very happy that this group is here. And I know that 20 people may not seem like a large number of people, and compared to our overall staffing in the hospital, I suppose it's not a huge number. But these are people that are going to be able to target critical needs that we have, and that's going to give our staff a breather for a little bit to just get a chance to step back, recharge a little bit so that they can be ready to come at it again.
Now, the Eisenhower Medical Center is actually not at capacity. It has about 80% capacity at this point, does have hospital beds, does have ICU capacity left. But what they need, according to officials there, is manpower. They are absolutely exhausted. So this is much needed support. Similar situations playing out across the state at this point, Allison.
Erin, what are you hearing from doctors there? What are they telling you? How bad is the situation for them in California right now?
Well, consistently hearing stories of fatigue. Medical staff here are really tired. They're looking at how they can possibly sustain this effort in the weeks and months going forward, really pleading with the public to social distance, to wash hands, to wear masks, to take precautions. You know, I was speaking to the chief medical officer at the LA County USC Medical Center, one of the hardest hit hospitals here in Los Angeles. That hospital will also, in the coming days, be receiving military support. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm relieved that they're available to us. In fact, our hospital will be receiving a team from DoD. We're very grateful for them to come. Sun Tzu said that no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. Mike Tyson distilled that down to everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. COVID's punching us in the mouth. I don't know where it's going to go 3 months from now or a year from now, and neither does anyone else. All we can do is manage the best we can in real time and try to manage things so that we stay within our ability to take good care of our patients.
And months into the pandemic, he said he's noticed a change in terms of the patients and how they're arriving. At the beginning of the pandemic, they were arriving as COVID patients. As things have progressed, they're only discovering someone's COVID positive once they come in for, say, a broken leg or out of a car crash or some other accident, not knowing they have COVID-19, an inadvertent discovery, and yet they still have to treat them as a COVID patient, which of course requires more hospital resources. But there are some signs of encouragement potentially here in California. The California Governor Gavin Newsom just hosted a daily briefing. His medical officer said that the positivity rate could potentially, they're keeping an eye on it, be beginning to sort of stabilize. It was at 7.7 positivity rate at the beginning of the week. Now it is at 7.1%. They'll be watching that over the next few days. Right around now is the 3 to 4 week mark in which Gavin Newsom has put in place mandated closures, taking precautions, shutting down bars, indoor dining at restaurants. They're hoping to see some positive impact of those mandates over the next few days. We're going to be watching the situation very carefully. The governor was very careful also to caution any sort of optimism at this point.
Erin, great to hear there's a bit of a glimmer of hope. I know at that briefing, Governor Newsom also announced some new guidelines for schools in California. What did he say? Yeah,
this is a change of approach for The governor, Gavin Newsom, previously had sort of a bottoms-up approach in which individual school districts were allowed to decide whether or not to have in-person or distance learning classes come the fall. Now, the governor is taking the decision to himself in terms of the watch list, the monitoring list that he currently has, some 32 counties, some 35.5 million Californians impacted by that monitoring list of, it's basically a list of counties where the metrics are not looking good in the fight of COVID-19. And he has basically put out a mandate saying that any county on that watch list cannot open their schools for in-person learning in the fall. And in order to be able to do that, they actually need to be off that watch list for a period of some 2 weeks. So again, another drastic action. This time he said it's to protect the state's children. Once in-person classrooms are allowed for those counties, or the counties, the few counties here in California at this point that may be having in-person learning, mandated mask wearing for third graders on up, masks strongly suggested for younger children as well.
Aaron, I know we say this time and time again, but things that just 6 months, a year ago, we probably never thought we'd be talking about, kids going to school wearing masks, but here we are. Aaron, thank you so much. More people are calling vacation hotspots home, taking advantage of work-from-home policies and relocating full-time. NBC News correspondent Cal Perry is at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, where real estate agents say they are getting more calls than ever before.
Hey, good afternoon, Allison. From a slightly rainy Ozarks, which is unusual. This place is booming. We are in the middle of an economic revival for this part of Missouri. It doesn't matter what the cases are saying. You talk to local authorities here, they say they will stay open, and that matters a great deal to the people who are moving here. People from St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, moving here with their kids, partly because the schools are open, and also because so many people are remote working. We spoke to a family from St. Louis that says the schools were closed. They didn't want to do the remote learning anymore for the kids, so they moved here. Their son, a senior in high school, wanted to get that last year of football season in. So many stories like that now in this town. The other side is the economy. The economy here is booming. Home sales up 73% year over year. That is not something that happens in the housing market. They're actually running out of inventory. A house goes on the market, we're told, and it's off within a couple of days. Then you have those other businesses like the boating business. Here at Sir Dykes, we've been talking to the owner, Greg. Here's what he had to say. How's business?
It's great. It's so good that I pinch myself because I'm not supposed to be doing so good during a pandemic. I mean, it became the road to the Lake of the Ozarks. People were showing up here early. Kids were out of school early. So all these homes here at Lake of the Ozarks filled up, and we got busy, and we haven't stopped.
That's all just in one marina. Greg actually owns 2 marinas, 2 locations out by the highway. As I said, business is booming. We actually spoke to the school district about all folks moving in. They said they're getting a, quote, ton of calls. They won't have a number on how many people are actually moving here and putting their kids into school until next month. But, Allison, get a load of this stat. There are 1,100 miles of beachfront, coastline, lakefront properties here. That is more than the entire state of California. So look for this place to continue expanding in the next few years. Allison?
Kidney failure, stroke, spontaneous muscle breakdown, just some of the effects of COVID-19 that medical workers are seeing regularly. Here's what doctors and nurses on the front lines are saying about the impact of this virus.
It doesn't stop, and we don't know when it's going to stop at this point. Admitting multiple patients a day, it's really a multi-organ disease. They go into kidney failure, they have strokes, they go into heart failure, they have heart attacks, they have blood clots, they have spontaneous muscle breakdown. And they may live, they may not. Unfortunately, a lot don't. And when you're on a hamster wheel, and a lot of people die, it's tiring. It's tiring. We know that more's coming at some point, so we're trying to brace ourselves for the long haul.
Today on the shift, on the floor, many critical ill patients, unfortunately requiring high amounts of oxygenation. There are those in kidney failure. Most of them have ventilators to help them breathe. Our job as nurses here is to lower their oxygen requirements as they tolerate and to try to give them the different modalities and therapies that they need to get off their ventilators. Before, when when this first began, we had increased numbers, but now it seems to be over capacity.
I like to make my patients smile and laugh and connect with them, and every room I walk into, my patients, you can tell that they're depressed. They are isolated. It's hard for them not to have their families here with them. I try to connect with them to see if I can make them feel like they matter, because sometimes when we have all this gear on, you lose that human connection.
I do think there is like a united sense of purpose with healthcare workers in general across the country and the world, that like this is really our calling and our profession, but we also expect the public to take care of us in return by staying at home and being safe.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.